announcement to make to you. I knew these two gentlemen were going to take pictures, so I always carry with me something I learned a long time ago from Joel McRae. Always have a little case of Vaseline here, so when you see the camera boys, you say, "How are you? It's good to see you." And you rub it on the lens, and it makes you look a hell of a lot softer as you go along. And I tell you, at my age, I'm happy to be any place. I really am. And because in May, or May 17th, not until then, May 17th, got a few more months, I will be celebrating two events. My 93rd birthday and my 83rd birthday at Paramount. It's probably the shortest resume in Hollywood history. And I have to tell you, getting a little age on you, I keep thinking about Milton Berle on each birthday, because when Milton was 90, he had some of his friends, me included, over for his 90th birthday. And Lorna, his wife, beautiful, beautiful woman, was celebrating her 58th birthday at the same time. And I said to Milton, you look so great, and Lorna is so good to you. It's wonderful that you two have such a compatible marriage. And Milton said, I want to tell you something. Although I'm 90 and she's a young 58, I'm going to tell you why we're so successful. I said, why, Milton? He said, well, at 90 and she being a young 58, I want to confess to you that we make love almost every night of the week. Almost on Monday, almost on Tuesday, almost on Wednesday. So, at 93, girls, and do this. Seeing a movie can change your whole life. On my 10th birthday, I saw a picture called Wings, the first picture win the Academy Award. It was a silent picture. Claire Bow, Richard Arlen, Charles Buddy Rogers, and a new fellow that had 2 minutes of film that Adolph Zucker found him, and he had 2 minutes, and that 2 minutes made him the biggest star in Paramount, Gary Cooper. So I went right to the theater manager, it was a Paramount theater, and said, I want to work for Paramount. And he said, you see those circlers there? He said, go on the corner and pass them out. And he said, from now on, after school, you come and pass out the circlers. I did, and I wrote Adolph Zucker a letter at Paramount Studio and said, Mr. Zucker, I'm now one of your employees. As it happened, Mr. Zucker visited the Paramount Theater, and I said, Mr. Zucker, I'm A.C. Lyles. And he said, yes. I said, you know the letter I wrote? Oh, yes. He said, that's nice. So I said, Mr. Zucker, would you take me to the studio and teach me how to make those movies? And as a result of that meeting, I got a job at the studio. And it was wonderful because I became Mr. Zucker's office boy. Mr. Zucker and Cecil DeMille were my mentors. And every day they would sit me down and give me incentives on how to be a producer. And then, or they would give me incentives on what they wanted me to do. And they gave me a notebook and said, everything we say to you, write this down. And I was reading the book the other day after 83 years at Paramount, and one of the things that caught my eye that I remember wasn't about how to make a movie, but they wanted me to do my personal life. And Mr. Zucker, and I was getting $18 a week, and my mother and I were living on it. We were doing fine, in Murphy bed and things. So Mr. Zucker said, write this down. I said, yes, Mr. Zucker. Always look good, buy a Cadillac. I wrote down, buy a Cadillac. And Mr. DeMille said, AC, we're worried about your investments. He said, I want you to buy a lot in Bel Air and build your home in Bel Air. That's a good investment. I said, thank you, Mr. DeMille. Build a home in Bel Air. And then Mr. Zucker said, this is the most important thing. I want you to repeat it every day. And I said, yes, Mr. Zucker. He said, always look good. He said, press British, but think Yiddish. got those things accomplished, I did it. And my two best, one day Jeannie Cagney, Jimmy's sister, had a small part 3 days in a Paramount picture, and I met her, and she, the next day she said, AC, I told my brother about you last night. I said, you told Jimmy Cagney about me? He was the biggest thing in Hollywood. She said, yes, and he wants to meet you. Jimmy Cagney, gosh, want to meet me. And she said, he's coming here tomorrow. Be here at 3 o'clock, he wants to meet you. So I met Mr. Cagney then, and he said, sit down, kid, we talked, and he said, Jeannie's right. I'm going to adopt you. You're going to be a member of the Cagney family. And he said, I want you to come to my house Sunday night to meet the rest of my brothers and get acquainted with them. And he gave me the address, and I said, well, Mr. Cagney says, do you know what bus comes by your house? And he said, you don't have a car? And I said, no, but it must be a bus or something that comes by. He said, no, I'll come and get you. He came to my place, took me out. I had lunch with Mr. Cagney and his brothers, and we got in the car, and he said, now you're a member of the Cagney family, you're going to be with us all the time. And he said, you know, there's another fellow in town that got here, and he just did, 2 weeks ago, he came to Warner Brothers, he just did his first picture, a small part in my picture, and I like him and I like you. And he said, you know something? We're going to be lifetime friends. And he held his hand up and he said, you see these 3 fingers? This is me, this is you, and this is this new fellow I want you to meet. And he did this. And he said, for life, we're going to be together for life, the 3 of us. And he said, I want you to come to Warner's next Thursday. I'll pick you up and take you out to meet this fellow. I met him and we had lunch and I liked him. He was a hell of a nice guy and we got along great. But also importantly, he had a car. And his name was Ronald Reagan. And we became lifetime friends. And when I was married 57 years ago, Ronnie and Nancy and Jimmy and his wife Bill took us to a little brown church in the valley. With Ronnie and Nancy had been married 3 years before. And it was just the 6 of us, the same minister. And I heard somebody crying, and I said, that's Nancy. It's the first time she's been back since Ronnie and Nancy were married. And I looked back, Nancy was smiling, but Cagney was crying. And you know, friendship in our business means so much. And I've been blessed to have known so many people like Cagney. And when Mr. Zucker and Mr. DeMille, they put me in publicity, head of publicity and that, and then they made me a producer, and they gave me a script. This was going to be my first script as a producer. And it was a gangster picture, and I was having dinner with Jimmy and his wife Bill up at our house in Bel Air, which I had accomplished. And I said, Jim, did you ever think of directing? He said, under no circumstances. I said, gee, Jim, I'm sorry, because hoping you'd be with me. He said, wait a minute, what do you mean? You're going to produce a picture? I said, yes, they made me produce it, and I have a script. And he says, when do we start? So I said, I have to talk to Mr. Zucker, because Mr. Zucker and Mr. Mills said, find a director that's had a lot of experience. This is your first picture as a producer. Find a director that had a lot of experience. So I took Jim over to the studio and had him sit in the secretary's office, Sidney Brecker's office. I went in to see Mr. Zucker. And Mr. DeMille was there, and there were 2 visitors. He said, this is A.C. Lyles. He used to be my office boy, and now I made him a producer. He's going to produce his first picture. And we got 3 others lined up for him. And he said, A.C., now what about this director? I said, I have somebody in mind. What are his credits as a director? I said, he's never directed. He's never directed? I said, but he knows his subject matter. This is a gangster script, and he knows that. And I said, would you at least talk to him? He said, yes. So I brought Jimmy in. When they saw it was Jimmy Cagney, God, it was a whole thing. Oh, boy, they were so excited. Jimmy Cagney, who started the gangster picture and everything, doing it. And Jim said, I'll do it, but there's something I want. And unless I can get it, I won't do the picture. And they thought he was going to ask for $5 million to direct this picture. And he says,